fine, thanks. Hello everybody, and welcome to video 4, series Dead or Alive, Addictions. I would like to talk a little bit today about placing one's own self's level of anxiety onto others and to those that are dealing and struggling every day with addiction. You know, certainly anybody that has an addiction is struggling and having their own issues that are usually very deep within themselves, and they are not, most times, they're not really able to deal with or don't wish to deal with, and therefore they conceal their own very personal problems by having their addiction, whether that be drug addiction or alcohol, whatever it may be. And for anybody that comes along, whether it could be their father, their mother, family, siblings, relatives, friends, working colleagues, when someone comes and starts telling the people that has the addiction, or the individual that has the addiction, about their own level of stress and depression and anxiety that they're dealing with, what you're really doing is you're simply placing upon these people this great guilt trip, and anybody that has an addiction certainly does not deserve that. And not only that, but they're not able to handle their own personal problems and circumstances. So why on earth would anybody else feel that they are capable of handling other people's problems? And it's the same if an addict is working in the workplace and they have other working colleagues or a friend that's working there, and their friend comes along and starts telling them their own personal problems or family situations. They're not able to cope with this. That is the reason why that they're having an addiction in the beginning. And as we know, any addict they're not really concerned with anyone else or anything else. It's the same if they have families or they have children or they have animals and pets and so forth. A lot of these people, their own families and their own loved ones and their own children and animals so many times are neglected, because an addict usually always thinks only of themselves. And that is why that they simply are just concerned about themselves, not in a healthy way, not in a way of protecting their own life or their own health, but in the way of getting what they want, or more importantly, as to what they need. And I also want to say that it is so important that over the years, as I have dealt with many addicts and their families, is the fact that many and many a times there are families and relatives and relations, whether it be, the mothers, the fathers, the sisters, the brothers, and sometimes even friends, will attempt to cover and conceal those that have addictions. And they conceal these people simply by, they keep their mouths shut. They don't want to tell anybody that they have a friend that is an addict. Mothers and fathers will not say anything because they find it too embarrassing, and they simply say, and I've suggested to these people so many times, that you speak openly, publicly if you wish, but honestly, about whether it is your son or your daughter or your brother or your sister that has an addiction. And the first reaction you get is, I don't want anybody to know that. I don't want to tell my friends that, because if I do, my friends will leave. Well, let me tell you, if you have friends, then they would be fair weather friends. If you have true and sincere friends, they're not going to leave you because you tell them that your daughter or your son is an addict, they're going to stay with you, and they're also, more than anything, they would want to help or support you. So if they wish to leave, then I'm very sorry to tell you, then you need new friends, because you haven't got any. And you don't have true and sincere friends. And that's what I think any of us would want. So therefore, to conceal everything, you're not helping the individual that is struggling with an addiction. And in the past, of course, I have been accused, I've been criticized highly on many occasions by parents, by siblings of an addict that will say, well, if you mention their name, if you put their name out in the public domain and talk about them publicly, you're not helping them. I'm simply saying to these people, yes, I am helping them. I'm not covering for them, and I'm not concealing them. Because honesty is the only way that anyone can successfully deal with anyone that has an addiction, no matter what kind of addiction that it is. Because, you know, I've always said, silence kills. And therefore, death can happen at any time. Death does not pick a particular day, time, or place. And therefore, I've often asked these people that seem to be so keen on covering and concealing when a loved one or a family member has an addiction. I've often said, so therefore, if someone should ask you, where is your son or how is your daughter doing, you're not going to tell them that they died? If you tell them that they died, do you not think that the person then would say, well, oh, that's sad, that's too bad. So what happened? And you're not going to say what happened? So then you're going to come out and you're going to say, well, they died as a result of an addiction. And no doubt your friend or whoever you may be talking to is going to turn around and say to you, well, I didn't know that they had an addiction. Oh yes, they had an addiction, but I didn't want to tell anybody. That's going to sound strange, isn't it? Because if you truly love your son or your daughter or your friend or your working colleague or whatever, if you have any level of compassion and love, you're going to speak openly and you're going to speak very honestly. And if you have a problem about that, then perhaps speak to somebody professionally that can help you with that. And I would also say to people, no matter who you may be, if you have a loved one or you have a friend that has an addiction, by all means, please don't go to these people and then phone them up and say that you're wanting to kill yourself, you can't deal with life, you're suicidal, and so forth. Can you imagine what a weight that you're putting on their shoulders? If they are an alcoholic, do you think that they're going to drink less by hearing that? If they are a drug addict, do you think they're going to be using less substances because you tell them that? I would say to you, you're not thinking. And I would also say to you, please be a little bit more considerate and show a little bit more compassion. And if they are a loved one to you, by all means, show them your support and your love by not attempting to put on your level of anxiety onto them. Addicts have enough to deal with. And therefore, when I have been accused of putting out other videos and talking and mentioning these people's full name, and then I've had people say that I'm hurting them. Correction. I'm not hurting them by speaking publicly and openly and honestly. I'm helping them. But for you, if you intend to conceal and to cover for them and to not speak openly and honestly about them, I ask you this question. How much are you hurting them? And if you're hoping for their addiction to get better, then unfortunately I would say to you, I think you're totally and truly dreaming. Because that's not going to happen. their addiction is going to get worse. It is going to advance, and it will, and I repeat, will continue to get worse. Anyway, everybody, I thank you for joining me today. If you have not read my first book, Standing in the Shadows of the Light, which is available on Amazon.com, please check that out. And in the meantime, everyone, stay well, keep safe, and I will be talking to you soon. And in the meantime, blessings, light, and love.